Welcome to Ask When Anyone. Now, of course, I am a technology geek when it comes down to it, even though I don't like assistive technology. And this is why I don't like assistive technology. Because when you have a disability, you struggle with websites unless you see the accessibility button. And you have heard me bark and squawk until I'm blue in the face about Amazon and how icky it is to publish a book on Amazon. And so I am going to let my guest teacher take it over, Brandon, because Brandon is a accessibility website expert. So I'm going to let Brandon take over and share his story with you guys. And I will be skipping the baseline questions except for one. And so you'll be educated as much as I am. So welcome, Brandon.
Thanks for having me on, Win. I've been really excited. One of my connections put me in touch with you, and I was so excited after hearing your story. So here we are, and yeah, I've been following your show for a little bit, and I've been getting excited as the day approached here. So
Yes. So okay, let's let's meet the elephant in the room. Many 10 years ago now, you guys, I published a book on Amazon, and the struggle bus was real. The struggle bus was extremely real because I have two stigmatisms. I can't see. I've been known to, because of my stigmatisms due to cerebral palsy, I can't see websites. So I'm a complete audio learner. But most websites are, including Ask When, I apologize, everyone. Maybe Brandon can help me. I apologize, everyone, that Ask When is not handicapped accessible. But I have been seeing lately blue handicapped accessible button on some websites. Um, a old system, or not old system that I used to use, a old long-term Medicaid program that I used to use finally has the blue handicapped accessible button. And when I'm talking about the blue handicapped accessible button, you guys, I'm talking about the little person you see on the placards. Well, anyway, Brandon, where should Amazon start? Let's throw Amazon under the bus here. Where should Amazon start on making it work with screen readers and work with people with disabilities, primarily cerebral palsy?
Oh boy, you caught me off guard there because I usually don't go after any fish as big as Amazon. So
Well,
um, yeah, I mean, what I see today, accessibility is getting more awareness, but it's not usually because there's a growing desire to make things inclusive or provide equal access. It's because there's a lot of lawsuits going around for discrimination. And so that's kind of how I got started in accessibility. Is the discrimination lawsuits were terrifying the niche of businesses I was serving, and so that's what kind of uh, brought on the questions: can you make it accessible? I have not ever checked out Amazon to really sort through their code and find out where they're off. Um, I find it like Google can be really bad too. I find that when these big businesses um, you would think would be top of the line, we need to make our product accessible. to people, and they don't. It's really disappointing. The guidelines have been published for several years. They've got the budget, they have the staff. Um, so I'd have to take a look and see. You could probably tell me more about what things challenge you on Amazon, and then
Yeah,
I could go
yeah.
from there. But
The big yellow button with black print that I can't even see half the time I navigated, and I think the thing is that people that use screen readers that read out loud have trouble navigating Amazon because the screen reader says everything on the screen. It's
mm,
a yellow button, black writing, and it confuses people. So let's take it to a smaller scale. How in the world would I make my website handicaps accessible? Which I'm going to do one of these days, you guys. I just need to figure out the time and resources to do it. But where do we start? Where do we start? Do we start looking at code or do we start looking somewhere else? How can we put the blue handicapped accessible person button on these websites?
sure, yeah. Well, you've got my number now, so we can work together on Ask
Oh
Win.
yeah. Oh yeah.
um, when it comes to making your site accessible, if you don't know anything about websites or anything, it's you can start with the stuff that you can control. The easiest one would be images. When you put an image up, every image needs to have alternative text, except in like a rare circumstance. So when you're adding an image of, say, your book on your website, your alternative text would be what text is in the image. So, like your book title. Um, if you've got images of words, you need to write that out. If it's just a logo, um, labeling it as a logo. If it's a decorative image, then you don't label it, but you have to do it in a special way so that when someone's going through with a screen reader, they don't hear an image and then get like a long file name that
No.
doesn't make any sense, or they don't hear that there's an image, but then they don't know what it is and think maybe, hey, am I missing some content here? So images are probably the easiest thing to start with, because no matter what you're doing with the website, you're in control of putting the alternative text on there. You don't have to get into any code. The next thing is usually heading structure is a big one, especially for screen reader users, because they'll sort the page by heading sometimes to do like if I was to go to a website and I don't want to read everything, I'll just scan the page and I just kind of look for the big text and the bold text, and it gives me a sense of, okay, where am I on the page, or what is this section about? I'm not looking for that. I'm keep on cruising. In the same way, the heading structure will do the same thing for screen reader users, is they can limit it by heading and scroll only by the heading order number to get a sense of what's on the page. Um, I find this problem all over the place is people will use the heading structure in the code, um, by default changes the size and maybe the bold, like the font weight, of the text. So people will use it to style. So maybe they want something to be big and bold, and instead of that being programmed in properly with the coding, they'll use a heading because it gives them the look that they want. So then when you're on a screen reader and you go to the page, you're all confused because you've got nonsensical information or not important information coming up for you as a heading. It's not really describing where you're at on the page. What are you doing? So that's that's the second easiest one. um, And then the contrast is one that is a simple one. It sounds like you struggle with that. it can get a little tricky because while there's a contrast ratio that's kind of an accepted ratio, there's also people that they need kind of the inverse colors. They can't make out, say it's a light background with a dark text, they can't perceive the text very well, so they'll do like an inverse. Um, and that you don't really run into until you get to the strictest guidelines, and you might find that with like the little widget tool that you're talking about that'll have the little guy or the handicap logo that you click and it'll give you options to change. Sometimes that will allow you to flip the contrast on the whole screen.
So I have a question there.
Sure.
But because my website is bright and colorful and pink um and I can see my website, but sometimes I have trouble seeing my own website. You guys, now you know the inside of astigmatism. I have trouble seeing my own website. So should I not only do it for screen readers, but should I do it as inverted colors too for those who have trouble seeing Ask Win?
You can, it's kind of the criteria as far as the standards go don't apply that until the highest level. So it's usually a very small percentage of the population that are affected by that, where you need the inverse of the color. So if you style it just with proper contrast, you can use the colors you want, but you want to ensure there's enough contrast between like your text and your background color, especially with buttons. Your navigation links, people get a little carried away with coloring on those.
Yeah,
You can ensure that, and then you can make it if you need to where people can toggle the colors. Sometimes the browser they use will give them that option. You see this a lot with how the browsers have now added screen magnification. You don't have to go to the magnifier tool in a lot of browsers anymore. You can just, depending on how yours is set up. I know I click or I hold control and I can scroll my mouse wheel and it'll magnify the screen up to 400%. So things like that can be natively built into the browser. It kind of depends on what browser you use, but
okay. So Google Chrome. I'm on Google Chrome. I have yet to see inverted colors on Google Chrome.
mhm.
Like,
Yeah, that one I'm not sure.
mm,
It may be there's a plugin or an extension you can use for that.
oh, I have
Um,
to look now, Lennon. You gave the retired educator a homework assignment because now I have to go look to see if I can do it. Now,
mhm.
what is your favorite website when it comes to accessibility? Who has done a fabulous job?
Boy, I guess I haven't really thought too much about that one. If it comes in terms of who I spend a lot of time with, I work a lot with webaim.org. They do website accessibility training, and then they provide a lot of information as far as standards and how to make things accessible, and just a lot of education. But they produce a color contrast tool, and I use that all the time when checking. They're not the best, they're not the prettiest when it comes to presentation, but I'm there all the time because their tool's simple to use. I know where it is. I've always used it. Um, but when it comes to an accessible site, um, boy, mine I know is accessible,
Yeah, yeah,
but I couldn't really pull one out of the hat unless it's like a project I've worked on, that kind of thing where I know for sure so that people can go see. I
I have
mean,
a question though.
mhm.
Is WebAIM public? Can people go to it even if they're not website designers?
Yeah, they sure can. It's open. I think the only thing that's restricted is there um, is a class, a training class. They used to do an
Okay.
in-person one. I'm not sure if that is now um, like virtual.
Okay. Because I have a friend who's who does a podcast website, and I told him that um, I was interviewing you. He wants to listen to the interview. Yes, he does, and because I said, help me and help all the other disabled podcasters out there," he goes, "Give me that interview." And so I'm asking that question for him because he's going to take a peek at WebAIM. I know he is because I'm like, "Okay, once you get this interview, you're going to take a peek and make this website, the website he's working on, Poddit, um, a handicapped accessible website, or at least try to make it a handicapped accessible website." And now, how did you get into all this? Because I think this is fascinating, personally, as a disabled woman.
Sure, yeah. I touched briefly on it, and I was working in web design. I started my own web design company in 2018. I left a maintenance management job after really getting into web design and just coding, and I really loved development. And so I started my own business, and I was working in the lodging industry. I live in a big tourist area, so it seemed like a good place to start. I thought there'd be a lot of low hanging fruit to kind of get started with. So I was working with lodging businesses and trying to get into a lodging association to talk to them about just web design and bringing in more clients. And the president asked me about web accessibility. And I had heard, about alternate text on images and kind of figured that was about it. And so I was, oh yeah, I know all about that. I do that all the time. And I had gone and researched afterwards and found out that it's a lot bigger than just alternative text. So uh, that's really how I kind of heard about it. I know they were worried because one of the people within their organization or a related organization had just got a discrimination lawsuit, and it shut them down during their busiest time of year. So they're really concerned about it. So I thought I'd roll it into my product offering and have web design and SEO, and I'll have accessibility as an option. And it just became something that was kind of so big, I decided to just specialize in it and just do consulting instead of just trying to pack in some other thing on my to-do list. I just wanted to kind of start with that and help bring sites out that were already accessible. So that's kind of the beginning. As I've been doing it, of course, then the pandemic hit and lodging dropped off for several months. So I kind of never went back. It was kind of a side gig for a while, and now I'm just doing consulting all the time. Um,
Yeah, because you you pivoted within the company.
mhm.
So yeah, you said forget the lodging industry. Lodging
Right.
industry doesn't exist anymore. And so you said, "Forget it," and you pivoted. Well, that's very smart, and I appreciate you coming on. I will say this at the end, but I definitely appreciate you coming on because I needed to talk to you. That's my biggest wish is to make my website, my own website, handicapped accessible, and I'm hopefully working with a website designer, but then the icing on the cake will be making it handicapped accessible. And my goodness, my listeners will be will say about time when, hello, you have a disability. Why are you struggling with your own website? I did not have the perfect, when I started this project 10 years ago, when I started Ask When 10 years ago, When's Women of Wisdom at the time, I did not have the perfect team. I am growing along with you guys. So Melanie Ake of Everyday Leaders 50 and 50 said to me one morning, I was in a Zoom meeting with Melanie Ake and that crew, and she goes, by the way, when I put you in touch with Brandon, Brandon does handicap is accessible website. I'm like, you did? What? And she totally caught me off guard on that one. So, Melanie, thank you for that. And so, um, eh, because people don't know unless people come out of the woodwork to help them.
Oh, that's for sure. I find that a lot. Either with web designers that I'm working with or trying to work with or businesses. A lot of people don't know that it's something that they're supposed to be doing. There's a lot of gray area because so much has been unclear with like Section 508 of the Americans with Disabilities Act that applies to website accessibility. It's changed over the years with the lawsuits that happen. Some courts will rule one way, some courts will rule the other way. So then businesses and people get confused on what they have to do. But there's still kind of a big divide on this is what you should be doing. Just you want people to walk in your door, and so they don't really think twice about a handicap ramp or an automatic door um, anymore. But all those things were kind of driven by the needs of the ADA kind of forced them, kind of like this, but driven by the needs of the disabled community. And this is the same thing. It really needs to happen. You're restricting an entire people group
Yeah.
from being able to access your stuff. I'm not speaking to you directly, but
No,
in
you
general.
are you are speaking to me directly. Now I have to now I have to get my now I have to figure out what I may tell my website designer today that he's not allowed to touch my website. I may use you and one of your website designers to help me because I need help. I need help. I mean, I am blocking off my own tribe here from my website. Yikes! Yikes! That's a little scary when the wind blocks off her own humankind from a website. I apologize to you guys big time because I thought, oh, Ask Gwen will be a fun little side project. No, Ask Gwen has turned into my full-time job, and I'm like, okay, now what? When I this is one of the things I thought about when I came home from Orlando back in March. I'm like, it went through my head that I'm about to lose my job. I'm like, okay, how am I supposed to make my website now that content creation is my full time job? How am I supposed to make my website more handicapped accessible? I don't know how. And so I didn't tell you guys. I'm like that I was searching. I think I was searching for someone to help me. And I think that Melanie Egg helped me out because I'm like, okay, she knows that I have a disability and she also knows that content creation is my full-time job. So I'm like, I didn't wanna spend the time Googling it, I didn't wanna spend the time on the phone doing it. I'm like, "Ugh, I'll just have them come to me," because Brandon came to me. So I now I have Brandon laughing at me because I said Brandon came into me. Now I have to use you because you, you are one of those who wants to help, that doesn't want to exclude the disabled population, and inclusion, yes, is a big key.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we hear a lot about that this year, especially with everything going on, is inclusion.
Oh,
And I always try and raise the question when the topic comes up, is like, oh well, are you being inclusive to the disabled community? Because it's pretty easy to throw a banner up on your website saying we support this group or we support that. Um, that's a 1 hour for a graphic designer to make, and they just tack it on. But what about the disabled community? There's 15 million disabled people within the United States that can't use their computer the same way I can. Um, what about them? They, especially now that, um, stores might not have the same hours, they might be shut down. I know I've heard you talk about not wanting to be out and about as much. You got to worry about getting sick. Everyone's shopping online a lot more, and it's so, are you going to limit them being able to purchase shirts, shoes, music,
resources.
you name it, because
Yeah.
of the website?
Yes. You took the words right out of my mouth. So I basically sat back and let you finish your sentence. No, but on, as I said, the big giant that we talked about at the beginning of this podcast interview, big giant houses my book, so I have to be kind of careful. But the big giant doesn't help when it comes to handicap and accessibility. And I'm like, okay, and that's why I am kind of shying away from them um, for my 12th and 13th book, you guys. I didn't tell you that, but I have two publishers lined up, willing and able to work with me because I want to throw the big giant out with bathwater because of the struggles I've had with the big giant. Even though we love Amazon, Amazon needs to work on its handicap and accessibility. But at the same time, so does Suzy Q down the street.
Right, that's right. It's something you see all over the place. It's, I think a lot of people just don't know it's a thing. There's a big educational component to it. Um, and so bringing the awareness to them, hey, just so you know, unfortunately, kind of the only way that's been able to happen has been through lawsuits.
Yeah,
It's oh well, if I don't have to, I'm not going to spend the money, because it is expensive. But a lawsuit's more expensive, and paying
yeah,
damages is more expensive. And a lot of the lawsuits I see, they want the business to come out and publicly declare that they discriminate against disabled people. And do you really want that kind of PR or association with your brand?
no,
But
no. And
so
as we wrap this interview up, do you have any questions for me?
sure, yeah. I was really interested to get your take. I kind of mentioned before how there's a lot of talk about being inclusive this year, and it's more along the lines of race. And I wanted to ask your opinion. Do you feel that if excuse me, the disabled community is forgotten when it comes to that?
Do I feel do I feel like in the Black Lives Matter the disabled community is forgotten? How mu
As far as, when people are talking about inclusivity,
Yeah,
um, yeah.
yeah, I I do. how long do an episode we had planned, and I could go on about 2 hours on this. I am not no, I'm not kidding when I say this. Yes, I do because people are so focused on Black Lives Matter, but yet those people with disabilities who are of different creeds, of different religions, of different X, Y, and Z, they get the fuzzy end of the lollipop because we're talking about Black Lives Matter as a whole. And so we're not talking about the young man who is autistic, which is a huge population along with cerebral palsy. We're not talking about the young woman who has cerebral palsy and she's black. I actually have a friend who had cerebral palsy. Her mother worked at, um, oh, now not NASA, the one close to me, Rocky, Rocky Mountain Fields. Oh, I can't remember the name of it now, you guys. But she was black and she had cerebral palsy, and it It really and I haven't told you guys this, I met her in the '90s, Rocky Mountain Flats, that's where my mom worked. And so, daughter was black, and, so it really opened my eyes to see the struggles of a black young woman with cerebral palsy because I haven't admitted that. So I have friends that are able-bodied and come from different creeds and different religious backgrounds. I also have people that are Hispanic in my life that have disabilities and they're trying to do content creation and they live this person, and this is public knowledge, this person actually landed up suing Winn-Dixie at one point because Winn-Dixie's website was not handicapped accessible. So it really opens my eyes to see different creeds and different nationalities who are dealing with disabilities, the struggles they might have compared to a white woman who just has cerebral palsy.
Mhm. Yeah, sometimes I just find it interesting that no matter your orientation, no matter your skin color, the majority of people will go and use the website, not think anything of it. Um, and they're really just overlooking the fact that there's people, no matter what their orientation or color, cannot use the website. And for the large majority, they don't give it a second thought. Well, they're not going to buy TVs. The blind people aren't going to buy my TVs. Deaf people aren't going to buy my electronics for audio. And it's really quite sad.
It is really quite sad how how the industry has gotten not to include people with disabilities, and I'm calling out a program that I use. And their website, I don't even go on their website half the time. Even though I love them, Challenge Aspen, your website isn't made for the disabled. Even though I love you guys, your website isn't made for the disabled. And I might send this interview to the CEO and say, you guys gotta step it up because um the disabled population is a disabled population, and for even though it's the parents that book the tickets for the older generation that can bite, it's the I myself fill out all my paperwork, so I have a hard time finding paperwork on their website. And it's like, hello, we're dealing with adaptive skiing. Hello, we
Mhm.
that drives me nuts. That drives me nuts. Well, anyway, how many hours do I have on the soapbox? Not any anymore. But I appreciate your support. And where can people find you if they want, if they listen to this soapbox? e- Excuse me, I mean episode. And where can people find you? And where can people get a hold of you? And I know you guys want me to work my website, and I'm going to work my own website with Brandon's help because now is the time to do it.
Sure, yeah. You can check out my website, which is precisionaccessibility.com. If you go there and you're a little confused, we are going through an upgrade. Just kind of changing over the site there. Um, but LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn like crazy these days. That's how I came to know you. Was Melanie and I have been doing a bunch of networking together, and I know not everyone's on there. But you can also email me office at precisionaccessibility.com, and I'd be happy to give out any information,
Yeah,
help anyone where I can.
please, please, people. Brandon's your guy. I am actually going to use Brandon myself to reorganize, redesign, make my website more handicapped accessible. I think now is the time for me to practice what I preach. And Brandon, you only started the tip of the iceberg. So I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate you guys supporting me and supporting the disabled community. And let's make this world a better place for the disabled and let's include the disabled. And so I will catch you guys next time. And I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous episode of Ask Win. Thanks to you guys. Bye, you guys.